Good evening and welcome to tonight's Saginaw City Council meeting. As we normally do, we'll begin with prayer and a pledge. If you'd like to join me, please bow your head. Gracious Father, we thank you for this opportunity we have to serve. Lord, we thank you for all our citizens. We thank you for all our public safety workers. We ask you to keep them safe and in your will. We ask you to be with us in our deliberation tonight. We ask this in your name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Milne.
Here.
Councilmember Tibbs. Councilmember Bench is pre-excused. Mayor Pro Tem Clark. Councilmember Moore. Councilmember Bryant.
Present.
Councilmember Balls.
Present.
Councilmember Humphreys.
Here.
Mayor Browning.
Here.
We have 8 members present and 1 pre-excused.
Very good. And remind the audience to remain quiet, refrain from speaking, the cheering, booing, or rude or obnoxious behaviors. Please, at this time, check your phones. Make sure that they're turned down, please. Make sure that your phones do not interrupt during the meeting. Also, council members. Madam Clerk, do we have any announcements?
No, I do not have any this evening. That will take us to public hearings, and we do have one. It is regarding an amendment of the Brownfield Plan for the SBC Michigan Works redevelopment project located at 312 East Genesee Avenue.
Okay, and I'd like to remind you the purpose of a public hearing is for the public to address council as a whole and for council to receive comments for consideration when action may be taken. Speakers must be limited to their remarks to the subject of the hearing. Begin by stating your name. The main presenter, or Mr. Miller, is allowed 15 minutes. Other speakers will be limited to 5. Speakers may ask general questions, but shall not ask questions of individual council members, city staff, or the audience. Public hearing is not a question and answer session. So with that, let's begin our public hearing with Mr. Tom Miller.
Good evening, Mayor Browning, Mayor Pro Tem Clark, City Council, Manager Morales. I'm Tom Miller with Saginaw Future, your economic development agency. I'll be very brief about this one. I'd first like to thank Yolanda Jones, Lori Brown, and Debbie Powell. We have a small committee that works on brownfields, and we had a number of these that we were straightening up over the years, and we were just trying to tie these things up. This one specifically is for the Michigan Works, the new Michigan Works building on Genesee, which you all know and recognize. There is no material change to this. This is something that you voted on a number of years ago, so there is no material change in terms of the tax capture. When the plan was written, this project is in the DDA. The DDA has the authority to capture taxes. That's what DDAs do. The way that the brownfield plan was written, the city was going to reimburse the developer for a certain amount of expenses, and the DDA was going to reimburse the developer for a certain amount of expenses. They were going to do that out of their tax increment revenue plan. And this is going to get slightly complicated, but the tax increment revenue plan was not cash flow positive. So without getting into a lot of detail, you set the base value for the DDA a certain year, and then property values appreciate, and the DDA collects on the incremental increase in the values of the property. Well, the DDA picked a bad time to set their values. That was during the precipitous decline of the Great Recession of 2008, and so consequently, they didn't have any revenues to pay out the TIF capture to reimburse the developer. The DDA voted a couple of meetings ago at our last at a previous DDA board meeting to essentially relinquish any tax capture for this project and allow the city to capture 100%, so that the city can reimburse the developer for their expenses. If you remember this project, it was on a block of completely blighted buildings, And the developer had to spend, I think it was $800,000, nearly $1 million to demolish the structures. And then there were some issues with the basement and water and PCBs. And so they had to clean all of those items up before they could build the building. The reason why the state enacted the brownfield law was to level the playing field for cities. So if the developer would have built this on a pristine site, say out in a township or in a cornfield somewhere, the project wouldn't have to incur these extra expenses. But because it was in the city of Saginaw and there were legacy costs that weren't the developer's, issues, these go back several decades, they had to incur an extra $1 million, nearly an extra $1 million of expenses. So the brownfield allows the developer or any developer to capture taxes for a period of up to 30 years. So again, there's no material change. We're simply allowing the DDA is allowing the city to capture 100% of the taxes. They're foregoing any taxes that they would collect, and then the city will reimburse the developer. I know that's kind of complicated, but I will be here for questions at the appropriate time.
Is there anyone else to speak reference to public hearing, reference to brownfield, or amend the brownfield plan for SSP Michigan Works redevelopment project located at 312 East Genesee? And third time request, is there anyone else to speak reference to brownfield plan for the SSP or Michigan Works redevelopment project located at 312 East Genesee Avenue, City of Saginaw? Being none, I'd ask for a motion to move to close the public hearing. Been moved and supported to close the public hearing. Is there any discussion on the motion, council members? Being none, all in favor signify by aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries.
Mayor, we are now at personal appearances.
For those that signed up for personal appearances today, let me go over our set of rules here. As we begin tonight's business, we welcome your thoughts and your input. If you come to the podium, please introduce yourself and state your home address. To be helpful, let us know if you will be speaking solely or on behalf of a group. All speakers will have a 3-minute limit, which is timed by the clerk. So be sure to cover your main points. Hearing from the citizens we represent is very important to us. We ask that you speak slowly and clearly so that we don't miss what you have to say. Finally, since you are speaking as a representative of all citizens, we ask you to be courteous and respectful to the members of the public present, to the citizens watching on SGTV, and to this council so that we can give serious consideration to your concerns. All follow-ups will be referred to the city staff. And at this time, Madam Clerk, our first
speaker is Cornethia Harvey.
Hello. My name is Cornethia Harvey. My address is 529 Athens. And I'm here today concerning that block grant. I came to you guys once before last year concerning some water had entered my basement because a pipe down the road had burst. I was told by the supervisor here, what's her name? Miss Franklin, to sign up for the block grant and get some assistance with that. So I signed up. Now they're telling me that the repairs are too much on this block grant. To repairs, to do my basement, to keep the water from coming out, is too much. I don't know how much the federal government give you guys to give to each residence, but I do know that to repair my basement, $7,500 or less. I'd like to thank John Stample for last year when I came and complained about that neighbor house at 535 Athens. They got on it right away and cleaned up that area and stuff. So I'd like to thank how fast they move. And I would hope that the city manager have something to explain to me why that I'm not eligible, because it doesn't make sense to me. It's too, I mean, the government give money to the, well, from my understanding, they apply for this grant, okay, the city. Apply for this grant for the community residents to apply. Now they're telling me my house is too much for repair.
Our next speaker is Eric Carbon.
Hello, my name's Eric Carbon. I live at 1003 Mackinac, and I'm here speaking on behalf of myself. This past Saturday, July 8th, at about 7:30 p.m., I called 911 about someone setting off fireworks at a location I specified, which is near where I live. I was told fireworks are legal in the state of Michigan. Shortly later, I spoke in person to two police officers who basically agreed with 911. One of the officers asked me my name and if fireworks bother me. Today, I asked the city attorney, actually, or the city clerk and the city attorney, what exactly is prohibited by the fireworks ordinance? What fireworks use is prohibited? The answer to the city clerk's office was, all fireworks are prohibited except the ones listed in the ordinance, including low-impact fireworks. The city attorney's answer was, all consumer fireworks are generally prohibited except on the day before, the day of, and the day after a national holiday. The city attorney didn't have enough time to explain, because she was busy with something else, what she meant by generally. Maybe it means that between the hours of 1 a.m. and 8 a.m., consumer fireworks are prohibited on the day before, the day of, and the day after a national holiday. It seems to me that the city's attorney's answer overlooks the wording of the ordinance that says, quote, no person shall use consumer fireworks except as provided, close quotes. Now these words, when read in conjunction with the rest of the ordinance, suggest to me, at least, that the ordinance prohibits all consumer fireworks, including those that produce an audible effect, on any day that is not included in the 3 days that involve a national holiday. The city of Saginaw has a video on YouTube where a Saginaw police officer makes this statement, quote, consumer fireworks are absolutely acceptable on the day of, the day after, and the day before a national holiday. He omits to mention the restricted hours on those days, and he makes no mention of what fireworks are acceptable on the other days of the year. I have two basic questions today. One, does the Saginaw Pyrotechnics Ordinance prohibit the use of audible consumer fireworks on all days of the year except the day preceding, the day of, and the day after a national holiday? And two, does it prohibit as well the use of audible consumer fireworks between the hours of 1 a.m. and 8 a.m. on the day preceding, the day of, and the day after a national holiday? I have a lot of other stuff, but I think my time is just about up.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jim Bolio.
Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council, ladies and gentlemen of the audience, my name is Jim Bolio. I'm the president of the Utility Workers Union of America, Local 104. We reside at 1614 Mershon Street here in Saginaw. We have approximately 350 members. All of but 17 work in Saginaw County, and many live here in the city. I'm here today to introduce us to you folks. We find it necessary a lot of times. We live, work here, but no one knows who we are, what we do, and we just see a blue and white truck drive by. We are the first responders of our great city, 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We are employed by Consumers Energy Company. The unionized employees of the company bring to the community the gas that heats our home, and the electricity that lights that. But that's just the end of the end product of what we provide. Our call centers answer the phones, making sure that you're taken care of in a first and timely response to the calls, and to help people get back on track, and providing many services that people don't know about to help pay their bills. Our meter readers are out getting the reads at an amazing 99.85% accuracy. Ever since June 6th of 16, our electric and gas distribution departments have been working Saturdays and Sundays 16 hours a day, so that we're here making sure that we can handle any emergency that may arise in that time frame. On the electric side of our work, we've signed to ensure that we respond to the after-hour calls and to all the storm calls. We recently hired a seasonal workforce. It's the first in company history to do gas pipeline replacement. These brothers and sisters work 6 days a week, 10 hours a day, to provide a safer community for all of us. And this is during the construction season. They're off December and January. Behind all of this labor is a unionized subgroup back there, and they're keeping the substations in operation, our fleet on the road, the material at hands, our headquarters in good repair, and the meters exchanged in a timely fashion. Our gas service department can respond to all of this and the gas leaks and fix your gas appliances. But it doesn't stop there. Like many of the citizens of Saginaw, we also live here, volunteer here, worship here, shop here, coach here, and we take great pride in our community. We just wanted to stop by and say hi. If there's any questions, I'll be glad to take them.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our final speaker this evening is Thomas Ray.
My name is Thomas Roy, R-O-Y, and I'm from Saginaw Township. I'm currently the president of the Saginaw Area Fireworks. I'm not sure if how many of you watched and observed our fireworks. I also have Diane Mackel, which is also a board member of the fireworks. And we want to just stop in and say that we had a great show. I'm not sure how many of you guys were able to observe it and watch it, but from our polling on our Facebook page and other comments, everyone seemed to like it, even better than Bay City. I'm not sure I know that, did I say that out loud? I'm sorry. But I know that Mayor Browning helped us with the flag raising at 10 a.m. He was very courteous and helped us a lot. We had drone footage and things like that, so many people observed that. We also had Sheriff Feddersfield lead our new car cruise from Martin Chevrolet, which went over the bridge and had a little car show on the island. And then, of course, at 10:15, we had our awesome fireworks show. We have a portion of our finale on our website, well, not our website, our Facebook page. So if you'd like to check it out, it's about a 2-minute video, and it shows the drone footage from, I want to say, the island. It's an awesome show. We're very encouraged by a lot of people with positive comments. Councilman Bryant seemed to enjoy it very much so. Pro Tem Mr. Clock pulled me aside and said he did a great job. So I don't really know what else to say here. Hopefully next year will even be bigger and better. We all want to thank everyone that supported us with raising the flag, supporting our donations. We are still a little short on budget. I'm not going to come over here with passing a bucket or anything like that yet. But if we don't get some more donations, we'll be here next month asking for more. So if anybody has any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them. Like I said, it's a great show. I hope everyone watched it. One last thing, from the police department, from the people that helped dig the trenches to the TRICAP, everyone had a positive attitude. We're awesome to have our fireworks here in the city of Saginaw. All right? Thank you.
Mayor, our next order of business is remarks of council.
I'll remind council members you are limited to 5 minutes, and we start with Councilman Tibbs.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to thank everyone in attendance today. I would like to thank the Saginaw Area Fireworks Board. It was a great show. I was there with my family, my 10 and 8-year-old, and it was my 8-year-old who just had to go see it. She actually was coming in from the Cleveland area, and she wanted to get back in time to catch a little bit of it. We were in the courthouse area, and we sat there, and it was a great view, a great show. Thank you for coordinating that. I'd like to thank our speakers who are present this evening. Ms. Harvey, I believe the city has shown that they're pretty good at responding to your concerns and getting back to you, and I'm sure they'll do that again. Mr. Carbon, we raised that issue with the fireworks here in the city. It was primarily a state-regulated law that we attempted to adopt the most strenuous provisions of it. I personally, I think the city did a good job compared to last year as far as making our residents aware of the law. And in my opinion, I think it was curbed quite a bit as far as leading up to the holiday and afterwards. It appeared to me, at least in my neighborhood, that residents were attempting to abide by the law. Not to say that it can't get better, but they did do a lot from the previous year, and I appreciate the city for taking some initiative and being creative with the funds, the limited funds that they have. So I want to thank the city and the management for that. I'm sorry, Mr. Bowie. I'm sure I pronounced your name incorrectly, but thank you for visiting. Did I butcher it pretty bad? Okay. Well, my name is Damon, and I get Desmond, Damon, David, Derek. So, but I'm sorry. But thanks for visiting, and I appreciate the work you and your company do for the city. Thanks for taking the time out, because you didn't have to be here, and you were, and I thank you for that. I also want to thank the county parks and recs. It appears that I haven't seen this before, but there are park play dates for kids all during the summer. I'd like to thank Mr. Luckel and congratulations on your recent nuptials there, if you're listening. I know when I talk to you at the county building, you say you do watch our meetings sometimes. So congratulations on your nuptials, and congratulations on your nuptials, and thank you for coordinating these events. There are a number of city parks that are having these events from 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. And I think that's a great touch from the county, and offering this opportunity for our kids in the area, in the city. I guess my only last point, most meetings I like to bring an article or something to that effect, but recently we had discussions about some of the new businesses that are in the area, or in the country, such as Uber, Lyft, Airbnb, I believe. And there was a decent article as far as taxing the new economy. And I don't think we're going to be able to curb these businesses from operating in the city, but maybe this is something we can look into as far as regulation and possibly generating some revenue from these new businesses. So I just pass that to my colleagues. And thanks for the opportunity to serve the city. That's all I had, Mayor. Thank you.
All right, Councilman John.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to start this evening with echoing Mr. Roy about the fireworks. And what I noticed about it is a total team effort. The city employees who work on it, the fire department, the police, the parks department, public works workers, and of course the fireworks volunteers. I believe the last meeting we had, Mr. Roy mentioned how many volunteers it takes to put that on. And it all comes off pretty flawlessly. Just kudos all around, and look forward to next year already. I joined the mayor at the flag raising, and that's third year in a row, and I think that's been a great event. And this year, with the car cruise, the flag is up there and the cars are cruising under the flag. It's just wonderful. Tonight we got a sheet of paper here from our city clerk mentioning vacancies on different boards and commissions and authorities here in Saginaw. And I would like to point out to the residents of Saginaw, this is an opportunity both to serve and to learn how the government works. Because a lot of what culminates here at a city council meeting starts at one of these boards or commissions. I'm going to mention two commissions that it's very important for the city. First one is the City Planning Commission. They handle many types of appeals and requests to the city, And their recommendation then comes to us through the administration. So they are the first step, and it's open to anyone over 18 years of age and a U.S. citizen who lives in the city to serve on these commissions. The second one, and this is as important or more important than the Planning Commission, is the Human Planning Commission. And we have a number of vacancies on that. And Madam Clerk, if you correct me if I'm wrong, when it mentions district here, that corresponds to your voting precinct. No, they are different. Okay, okay, thank you very much. That is very important because it is by district, so that you are representing the citizens in your neighborhood where you live. The Human Planning Commission works on, to tie into one of our speakers tonight, community development block grants and how they're distributed and what programs will be funded and at what level. And it's a very important piece of work. That commission in working with the administration here in the city reviews literally hundreds of applications for those funds and the programs that they will make available to the citizens. So I can't stress too strongly, this is your way to get involved in your government. And to finish, I'm very happy the speakers came tonight. It shows that people look at what we have in our ordinances, what we're doing, and we have some ordinance work tonight on our agenda. And you'll see we try and make the wording and the ordinances very accessible to everyone. So you know what we're saying and you can read it and look, bring a complaint to us and we're reading off the same page. So that'll be our work later tonight. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Good evening, everyone. There are always so many different things that could be said, but I'll just try and highlight a few. I will agree with Council Member Millen. As I look at this list of opportunities to get involved, there are 45 different open positions. I think it's a situation where people can get involved in committees and commissions with the City of Saginaw, an opportunity to make a difference. The entire culture of this community is changing, it's improving. We're leaving the times of Sag Nasty and moving more towards the Saginawsome. It's instead of sitting around posting negative comments from your parents' basement on MLive, get involved, do something. If there's something you don't like, then get involved. I want to compliment the police department. Seems like every meeting now there's something positive to be said. The SVSU professors, Miller and Reveri, Go Red, conducted a survey, I'm sure with the assistance of students, that disclosed that in 5 years, over the last 5 years, there's been an 86% decrease in Part 1 crimes on the east side of Saginaw, a 71% decrease on the west side, and overall an 80% decrease in major crimes. That's phenomenal. That's in the last 5 years. We're seeing posts on Facebook and other places with police officers playing basketball with kids, playing, some kind of bounce back game that I hadn't heard of, don't understand. I'm still waiting for the first time I see an officer jump in a pool in full uniform, but it might happen. We don't know. I commend the police department, the chief. I think the culture of the police department has changed. The Milton Hall incident has been in the news again recently. I know that Councilman Balls was a panel participant over at Counterculture dealing with the topic. And I think things are improving. I'm all for it. I'm going to commend the fire department. We always tend to highlight the crime and things like that, but on the way here tonight there looked like a pretty nasty accident at the corner of Bay and Court, and right there on the scene was the fire department as first responders helping take care of things, and truly we appreciate all of that. Mr. Bleo, thank you. We appreciate hearing from the unions. This state was founded and had great success over the years, in a major part because of the efforts of union members. And I'm glad that you continue to be active and be involved. It is all for the good of the community. I think, oh, congratulations to Councilman Derek Desmond, no, Damon. Damon Tibbs. I understand your daughter won a National Dance Award, and I think it's marvelous for her, but that also says something for you as parents. Appreciate that. That's what I've got. Thanks.
I'd like to thank everybody for showing up for the meeting this evening, and especially the people that came and had comments. I hope that your concerns will be met up to your satisfaction before too soon. It's not too late to get them taken care of. And I too would like to thank the union people for showing up and showing what unions do in the city of Saginaw, because we do everything. You need a job done, call a union person. They can make sure it get done on time and safe. Talking about safe, I had met a person the other day who lives at 1468 Chatham Drive, and he sent me a picture of his sidewalk. It looked like it's sunk in, and he's really concerned about somebody getting hurt out there. His name is Gary Hunt. I hope that maybe the city can go out there and take a look at that, because he's really concerned about that. I too would like to echo what everybody else talking about the fireworks. It was beautiful as usual. Me and my wife always go in to see him, because it kicks off like our honeymoon. We was married on the 5th of July, so we always go check the fireworks out first. And it was nice, so I'm always looking forward to that myself. Yes, I did go to the counter culture to talk about the Milton Hall incident. I really just went there to see what the artist had to draw, and before I know what happened, I was a panelist. And I gave my comments, what I thought. It was good to have citizens there to express their concerns. I let them know that the Mr. Roof, the police chief that we have now, is doing an excellent job, I think, in the city of Saginaw. He has addressed some of the concerns that I had when I first come to the city council, and that was that we didn't have enough minority representation on the police force, and I think that he's doing a great job with that. And we see the officers out there talking to the kids. How often do you have a police officer that's been on the force for no more than a year and a half to be the officer of the month a couple of times and stuff like that? I think people are respecting him. So I'm looking forward to Saginaw doing bigger and greater things, and I thank the police chief for what he's doing for the city of Saginaw. Thank you very much. Other than that, I don't have any other comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everybody. It's good to see some familiar faces in the audience tonight. Just want to say thank you to our public speakers, Ms. Harvey and Mr. Carbon. I believe some city officials will be getting with you after your presentation today. Mr. Bolio, thank you so much. I met you, I believe it was 4 or 5 years ago, and in Midland at Labor Night with the Loons, so it's good to see you again here. Mr. Roy and Ms. Mackel, excellent job on all the work that you guys do bringing the fireworks here. I know it's very arduous. It never stops. I know you guys have started collecting already for next year. And I did like the link, Mr. Roy, that you sent, so hopefully we can get that posted either to our Facebook or live stream it on our YouTube. I think that was awesome. It's one of the greatest events I think we have in the city. But really, other than that, we've just had some phenomenal events in the city, and our communities really come together. Light Up the City, we did our second walk at Thompson. Our next walk will be this Wednesday, I believe, at UAW 699, beginning at 5:30 with refreshments and mixing and mingling, and then at 6:30 we'll get out in that neighborhood. So it's been wonderful. This will be the third walk, and I believe this is the largest neighborhood-wide community event that we have. It's awesome. I had some questions for Mr. Carwat, but I just found out that he was on vacation. So aside from that, Mr. Mayor, that's all I have.
I'd like to thank all of our personal appearance individuals who spoke, Mr. Tom, and I know I'm going to mess it up, Ms. Mackel? Ms. Mackel, I did not win. Where my TV at? Where my trip at? I did go to the island. I bought a T-shirt. I think I held up traffic buying the T-shirt, but I wanted me a T-shirt, and I had to get a T-shirt. So the fireworks was excellent. You know what? We could see it from my house, but I sat across the street and watched it because the mosquitoes were really, really bad, really bad. So I just like to thank you for all of the efforts that you do, and for our other presenters, for our union worker. I thank you so much for coming and presenting to us. Once again, union is in the house, and we thank you for it. I'd like to also echo on Mr. Eric. You know, fireworks, they are bad right now, because they're bad in my neighborhood. Sometimes I don't know if it's a gun or the fireworks going off, and so that is annoying, but considering the way it was last year, I have to echo with Councilman Tibbs, it is a whole lot better. At least they're doing it, and they are cutting it off earlier now, thank God. And as for my young lady who came out to speak about the community block grant, I'm sure that the city manager or someone from that office will get with you real shortly to give you some explanation or some reasoning. This week was a really exciting week, and last week was too. I'd like to thank our chief, because I called him because this lady called me. And before I jumped the gun, I called him and asked him about it, and we resolved the problem after she told me part bits and pieces. And I was so glad that him and one of his shift commanders took the time out to talk to me and explain it to me. I'm hoping that that problem has been resolved, because I did speak to the individual, and I told her that I would be willing to take her to the Quality Farmer Fleet to find out what we could use instead of what she had. Other than that, Saginaw is truly on the move. My sister was here from Detroit for the holiday. I have family in town from Texas and all over the United States, and they are excited. Some of them said they think about moving back home, but I'm trying to get them to come back home. There's no place like home, and when it comes to Saginaw, this is home. This is home. I've been to the Light Up the City. I'm encouraging individuals, if we're in your neighborhood, or not even in your neighborhood, cut your porch light on Wednesday. Leave it on. There is a reason why we're lighting up the city, because we want the citizens and we want everybody to feel safe. This Wednesday, we're at 699, which is the Saginaw High area. That is a big area. So I'm encouraging everybody that can walk. If you can't walk, ride your bike, do your walker. We got people that'll help you along the way. We even got cars to come by and pick up people. If you can, please come out and support Light Up the City. It's a fun activity. We pick up paper. Not only do we do that, we get a chance to know our neighbors across the city. So if you can get out on Wednesday, I'm encouraging everybody to come out. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, first I want to just say welcome to all those here, and including those on SGTV who are watching the activities here. I want to follow up a couple of comments to our speakers. Ms. Harvey, please understand that there's federal rules that we have to follow. And that's probably the biggest issue here, and I'm sure the manager or his designee will get back with you on that, but we are restricted on those grants by the federal rules that apply. Mr. Carbon, unfortunately, there's a certain element of similar situation here where the state, as Councilman Tibbs said, there's some confusion caused because there might be a conflict between the city ordinance and state law controls where there is such a conflict. So we don't, just because our ordinance has certain language, if it's preempted by the state law, then there's not much we can do about it. If you are concerned about these restrictions that are imposed not being sufficient, you will need to contact your legislature, your representative or your senator, and see if they will do something. But other than that, our hands are tied by that state law. Mr. Ballou, is that correct? Bolo. Welcome. I'd like to thank you for being here. Welcome to City Hall. Welcome to Council. It's nice to hear all the things that are being done by your union and your local, so having that information is certainly important to us and to the citizens, so again, thanks. Mr. Roy, you and Ms. Mackel and all your committee, I really know who they are. I know all the work you do. I did watch the fireworks with a large group of people who all were just oohing and ahhing the whole time. I'm looking forward. I know you're working on future expansions to make that a full-day festival type event. I think that's tremendous. I certainly encourage you to do that because all the things that are going on add to what the draw is for people coming into the city. Several days afterwards, I was wearing one of my fireworks T-shirts out to the grocery store, and a guy out-of-towner from Auburn stopped me and wanted to thank the committee for all they do because he thought it was such a tremendous show. He'd only been to it twice, and he said he did compare it to Bay City, and he said it was so much better. So he's an Auburn resident, and he loved it. So he actually wanted to thank the committee. So on his behalf, I'm conveying his thanks to the committee as well. I do want to mention all the work of the police department, police reserves, state police who were there, all the other participants from the city and related staff who did all they did for making that a safe event and just well run. I mean, everything went so smooth. I hand it to everybody, including our public works department, who helped with all they did in making it possible. So. And I don't want to forget Mr. George and his efforts with the flag. That flag is something he contributes to the event, and that's a tremendous thing. So thanks to all of those. But one final thing, if you haven't got your donation in to the Saginaw area fireworks, please do so. They need support of all our citizens, of all the employees of the city, and to anybody who's interested in seeing this continue. So. With having said that, I will move on to a couple other events. Jazz in the Garden started last Wednesday at the Anderson and Richmond Center. It goes, I believe, the next 3 Wednesdays. It's a great event. Next week is, let me think, it is, now I forget the name, the Jazz, Sauce Cats. Thank you, Councilman. Yes, Sauce Cats, a great group. We also have, as a final thing I want to mention, Saginaw has, through the HSC, Semiconductor, Saginaw Arts and Enrichment Commission, and several of the sponsors, a brochure that's put out that highlights something like 100+ events that's going on in the city of Saginaw this summer, ranging all the way from the well-known Lawn Chair Film Festival and Friday Night Live to the Castle Celebrating Culture, Saginaw Eddie concert bands, Retke Summer Library, picnic series, Family Backyard Field Day at Greenpoint, Japanese Cultural Days, Acting Up Theater Company, Zoe Library, Kids Bop Kids at Huntington Bank Event Park. There's hundreds of things. It never ever say that if you are a citizen of the city that there's nothing to do in Saginaw. There is hundreds. There are hundreds of events. Please, if you need to, look it up, find it. But they're here. Thank you, Mr. The rubber band was coming out.
Well, thank you, and we've pretty much addressed everything here many times. I want to thank all our speakers also. Boy, I get so excited for Light Up the City, to see the people come out and to walk our neighborhoods, and all those involved. What a tremendous thing to have, and we're one of the few. Ms. Mackel, I believe this is the largest audience that has heard you sing the national anthem. And what a beautiful job. I want to commend you on that. What a beautiful job. It was really moving. And then actually know this person who's singing over this. And so that's probably your largest audience. And it was done very, very well. This past weekend, my wife and I stopped at the Court Street Cafe for breakfast, and I can't tell you how many people told me about the fireworks, and Bay City people, and I'm not afraid to say it. Saginaw's better. I did have one person comment, though. It was made a comment. It was really a shame that the grand finale did not go off as it was supposed to. Apparently, there was a malfunction, and there was nothing but fire in the air. And then, of course, I had to explain to him that is not a malfunction. That is done on purpose. And he says, and after I said that, he says, well, it was pretty cool. He says, I thought it was a malfunction, but actually it's pretty cool to see that much fire go up in the air. And it was, and I will comment, I haven't seen the fireworks coming out of the river before. That was something new. I can't believe that all of a sudden there's fireworks in the water. I mean, I'm not talking a barge. I'm not talking, there was no barge there. I mean, these are coming out of the water, and I don't need to know how they did that, but it was amazing. Is there something every year that when you think you've seen it all, boy, you haven't. You better come and take another look at that. Maybe it was submarine. I'm not sure. It could be. In the front row over here is Mr. Joseph Thornton, sitting in the front row over here. He is a 2017 SASA graduate. He has attended the Student Government Day. He's also worked as an election worker, and he is now an intern with our city clerk's office. And so I welcome Mr. Thornton to the city of Saginaw, and we're just so excited to have you here and to be involved as a young person, as an election worker, and being involved in the community. You take after many of our other council members here, and I appreciate that, and look forward to seeing you at maybe some more meetings and some of the things that you're doing with our city clerk's office. And with that, I believe we're going to move on to reports from the manager. Is that correct?
That would be the next order of business, yes.
At this time, though, I would like to let you know that I am excusing myself, that Mayor Pro Tem Floyd Clark will be taking over the rest of the meeting for me. And so thank you, and we will. What you got? Huh? Okay, got it. Go ahead.
I wanted to mention that that as Councilman Milne stated, you do have copies of all the open seats for boards and commissions, the vacancies. I think a couple council members had asked for that, so we wanted to provide that to you. It should be at your place setting, so please share that with people who are interested in getting involved in city government. So we are looking for some positions, specifically the Human Planning Commission and also the SEDC for people who are interested in economic development. We particularly need city residents to apply for that board. So if you know anybody, please share those openings with them. I would say that the fireworks display was very good, but what I think of, and I know our chiefs and think of, is the safety portion of the fireworks for people at home and also at the fireworks on the river. Chief Van Loo had notified me that at this time they don't believe there were any fires related to fireworks, which is good. It's an improvement, I think, from last year. We may have had a few incidents that were related to fireworks in the neighborhoods, and also I don't think we had any injuries reported. I wanted to also mention our July Officer of the Month is Officer Holp, as we forwarded that to you from Chief. The incident that led to him being selected happened on the 4th of July on the island. So I wanted to point that out, and also thank Officer Holp for his dedication and his commitment and observing the crowd and noticing the young girl who was missing. And also point out that his canine partner, Segan, was vital in making the girl more comfortable. The canines are an important part of the police force, and we know that our use of canines has doubled thanks to the Saginaw Valley Police Canine Association. We previously had 2, we now have 4, but this case in particular shows the benefit of the dogs, and not just in tracking and doing drug sniffing, but also they're very helpful in dealing with young children, particularly those who may have issues dealing with the public. So thanks again to Officer Hope and his canine partner, Segan. And as council member also mentioned, we have had a lot of positive stories coming out, and I think that goes to show that Chief Ruth has been selecting what type of officer he's been selecting in his new hires. As you've seen from the swearing-ins, we've had a lot of new police officers hired in the last 3 years, and I think we're seeing results of the way that the police department is training and who they're hiring with some of these Facebook stories that we see. Council member mentioned the basketball game that was being played. Councilman Humphreys mentioned that, and this incident with Officer Hope on the island and the young missing girl. And I think there was another one that Chief forwarded me today about some missing bikes being returned to some kids that was also noted on Facebook. So I think they're doing a great job in interacting with the community, and that's what we needed to have done. So I think they're doing a really good job with that initiative. And with that, we have one presentation this evening. Tom Miller is going to talk about the Defense Manufacturing Assistance Program. We're not asking for any action on this evening, but I thought it'd be good for you all to learn about it. And Tom is going to be the point person for the city on this initiative. So we'll let Tom take over.
I'm pretty excited about this project. The city manager, Yolanda Jones, John Stemple, and I have been talking and meeting about a number of these issues, and they've been mentioned at a number of our strategic planning sessions. We just haven't had the resources here at the city to address them. If you'll remember from Saginaw Futures presentation to council a couple of months ago, Delana Spates Allen from our office administers the PTAC program, which stands for Procurement and Technical Assistance, which helps companies obtain government contracts. Delana has formed a partnership with DMAP, which I'll tell you about in a second. And we met a couple of weeks ago and asked the folks at DMAP if they would help the city out on a couple of different issues. First, I'll tell you a little bit about DMAP and their program, and then I'll tell you how we'd like to utilize their services to assist the city of Saginaw. So DMAP, and this comes from their presentation, but they are a partnership between, and this is sort of odd, I think, for Tim, especially being a U of M graduate, to see Ohio State and Michigan on the same slide together. But it is a partnership between Michigan, Ohio State, the Ohio State University, and Purdue, as well as the MEDC and then the federal government. They have quite a bit of resources there. You can see $8 million and $1.4 million for the state of Michigan. This is it's sort of a complicated graph, but essentially what this represents is there's a fluctuation in defense spending, and this goes all the way back to the 80s during the Cold War. But it's cyclical. Sometimes the federal government spends more, sometimes less. But this is more important to look at. Defense spending, you could see in 2008 was almost $6 million in the state of Michigan. It's declined since that time to $2.5 million. Which is not good for our local manufacturers, obviously, because we have a number of manufacturers in the city of Saginaw that receive government contracts, and they rely on these contracts for revenue so that they can hire folks and be productive companies. The DMAP program was put into place to assist both communities and companies that are seeing this downturn in the defense spending. This is just sort of a little graph that demonstrates how the DMAP process works. As I said before, Delana introduced us to the folks from DMAP. We sat around and strategized on two parts, which I will get into, both on the company assistance side, but then also on the community assistance side. You can see there they have helped a number of communities and a number of companies throughout the tri-state area that they work in. And for companies to be eligible, they simply have to have experienced some downturn in their business as it relates to government contracting. During our meeting, we went through a list of the manufacturers in Saginaw County, a number of them, primarily a number of them in the city of Saginaw, that have experienced some loss of sales due to the federal government's downturn in spending, and identified a number of companies that we are going to work with, and I'll get into that in a second. The companies, or the DMAP helps them in a number of different ways, which you can see here. Primarily, what we've had luck with in the past is through market research. So if company X is making widgets for the Army or the U.S. Navy, they can do research that says, well, yes, the Defense Department purchases these widgets, but so does a medical device company, or so does the automotive sector. And so they can kind of point companies in the direction to hopefully do some sales calls to help them increase their revenues. They do that by identifying the companies, providing that contact information to the company they're working with. And so we think we're going to do that on with a number of companies in the city of Saginaw. They also help, which is part of sales, is the marketing and the trade shows. So a lot of these manufacturers go around the country and around the world to sell their products. DMAP helps them to identify the most productive trade shows and events, and then helps them prepare their materials. So that's a little bit on the company side. That's what Saginaw Future primarily does. But they also have a second side to the coin of the DMAP program, where they help communities that have been affected by the downturn in defense spending, and that's why I am here today. They help communities on a number of different fronts, and you can see there they've listed here on the slide. This kind of relates back to a number of issues that we have been working with, like I said, through our strategic planning. All of these things that you'll realize here, but for tourism, which may not be a big one in the city of Saginaw, those are all issues that need to be addressed in some form or fashion in the city of Saginaw. So we talked with the city manager and talked with Yolanda and talked with John about the sorts of things that the city could use as a part of this program. And we sort of came up with a twofold approach. The first is an economic development plan. You say, okay, well, do we have a plan? Where are we currently at in terms of planning? We have a general plan that Yolanda and I presented a couple of years ago, but this is a little bit more official. DMAP would hire a consultant, a nationally recognized consultant, and really put pen to paper and develop a full-blown strategy for the city of Saginaw in terms of economic development. I should also add that this program comes to the city with no cost, so there's no match requirement, which is typically these studies can cost $30, $40, $50, $60, up to $100,000 to do that, which is primarily why the city, if you remember from our update of the master plan, why we don't do these studies all the time, because they cost a lot of money. So from the economic development plan side of things, we're going to focus on manufacturing, so supportive of our primary manufacturers in the city of Saginaw. Focus on skilled trades, which is important, that we know. We've heard a number of unions come and speak about the skilled trades, and we know that those are essential for the city of Saginaw. And then to market our former industrial sites. So we have a number of those racer trust properties, one which we have luckily done a deal with Menards to expand their operation there. But we have like the TRW building on Genesee, which is, as Yolanda and I have worked through this redevelopment ready process, been identified as probably the most significant and important industrial site that needs to be marketed and given some attention to. And then second prong approach on the economic development side will be our focus on our anchor institutions in the riverfront area. And those are St. Mary's Covenant, CMU, the CMU College of Medicine, and Mobile Medical Response. So we have a core of businesses. We all know that healthcare industry is thriving and they're constantly adding jobs, nurses, doctors, and those kind of things. We want to really focus our energy and our efforts to leverage the investments by the hospitals, the College of Medicine, MMR to their greatest extent. And then also to look at other anchor type developments that we see on the riverfront. Shaheen Developments medical complex that is across the street from St. Mary's Hospital, but then also we have AT&T, which has several hundred employees, and there are other businesses along the riverfront that have a great economic impact. So that will be one plan. They'll hire a consultant. They will pay the consultant, most importantly, and then they will engage in a community input process where they will help us to put together a plan. The second plan that we're looking at is a housing study. So if you'll remember, MCOG, the Michigan Council of Governments, did a plan, sort of an area-wide, I think it covered 8 counties, to look at housing, the trends, the cost, what areas were growing, what areas were shrinking, what kind of housing was missing. We specifically asked them to address the city of Saginaw, sort of as a pull-out, and to look specifically at the city of Saginaw, which gave us a good sort of a background knowledge on how things are going in the city, but this will be a deeper dive into looking at some specific factors for housing. So the first one will be a market demand. What is the overall market demand for housing? We know that we want to increase residents in the city of Saginaw. They help bring tax base. They help fill up our neighborhoods. They fill up our schools. That's a primary goal of the city of Saginaw. But then also you have to look deeper because we know that the neighborhoods are different. One thing that we talk a lot about is attracting young professionals and talent because that's what our companies are looking for. They're primarily looking for riverfront type development, mixed use. They're your young professionals and that kind of thing. But also, we need to support our anchor institutions, the hospital, St. Mary's and Covenant, and the neighborhoods around them. And then we have other neighborhoods like the Green Zone, which Councilman Moore frequently questions me about. It's important because we have neighborhoods that are changing, and we have neighbors and residents that live in those neighborhoods that they live there currently, and we need to figure out how we can assist all residents throughout the city. And so we're going to look at some national best practices for how do we help our residents. And you heard a young lady here talk about home repairs to her home and the difficulties that she's having. So we're going to look at best practices for assisting all of those folks that we can through different means. I'm currently the chair of the Alignment Saginaw Housing Committee, and excuse me, we've been talking about some creative financing programs for housing. And so hopefully this will be a comprehensive plan to put together some best practices to help our residents and grow our housing demand. So I promised I would keep it short, but those are 2 projects that the city has desperately needed in terms of some planning. And thanks to Delana and her connections at DMAP and the University of Michigan, they're going to be providing those to the city of Saginaw for free. So that is my presentation.
Any questions? Councilman Milne?
Hi, Tom. I just want to be sure I'm understanding this correctly.
Yep.
The city had within it 1 or more defense contractors who are qualified for DMAP.
That's right.
So we have become qualified as the community part of it.
That's right.
And this is all Saginaw Futures working on this on our behalf.
That's right.
Okay, great.
do it, we're steady growing. But where we gonna put them? So I'm excited about this project.
Right. And we are seeing some increases. You know, the Bancroft and Eddy have 150 new residents. Dr. Shaheen's condo development phase 1 and phase 2 are nearly full. We're working on another project, which you'll hear about later, which will be another housing project. So we are seeing some increases, but we also need to attend to the neighborhoods, because you got to have healthy neighborhoods to have a healthy city. And so I think bringing in a national consultant with best practices will hopefully help us to address some of those issues. Mhm. Well, that'll be up to the consultant. The thing that we hear, we did some strategic planning, and we did some industry surveys from the businesses that we meet with, and the number one concern it was loud and clear that skilled trades, qualified skilled trades people are the number one site selection criteria for businesses being able to expand. As you know, folks are getting ready to retire that have had 30, 40 years of skilled trades experience, and what we're finding is that, and this is no shock to any of you, but there's a gap between the young folks that haven't been exposed to skilled trades and the opportunities in the skilled trades. It's the folks pushing their kids to college and sort of glazing over the skills trades, and we see a huge gap, and it constantly meeting with our manufacturers. We meet with 200 manufacturers every year, and that's the number one concern. And so there are a number of things that are going on currently to try and address the pipeline, to try and expose kids, whether it's the robotics program or getting kids mentorship programs or internships programs, in CNC or pipe fitting or plumbing and those kinds of things. But it's not enough. And so we hope that the consultant is going to be able to provide us with some avenues and some pathways that we can help push the young people into the skilled trades.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
Yep.
That concludes the management update.
Very good. Your next order of business is the consent agenda.
On SGTV Channel 191, we would look for a motion to approve the consent agenda items, leaving room for exceptions. Are there any exceptions? Any exceptions? Any exceptions? No exceptions. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Carried. Next, Madam.
Our next order of business is reports for boards, commission, and committees, and appointment of board and commission members.
Are there any reports regarding city boards and commissions? Council members, any reports? Hearing none, I would ask for a motion to approve items 1 through 3 for appointments, allowing for exceptions. Any exceptions? Any exceptions? All in favor? Oh, Councilman Bryant? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Number 4 is simply an acknowledgement of the mayoral reappointment of Mr. Tyson. And on behalf of the mayor, I will announce Peter Tyson's appointment to the Saginaw Housing Commission with a term to expire September 30th, 2022. Madam Clerk?
Thank you. Our next order of business is introduction of ordinances. Our first one is to amend Chapter 110 of Title IX Business Regulations by amending Section 110.06, titled Suspension, Revocation, Denial of Renewal of License.
Is there any discussion? Councilman Milne?
I had a couple sections of the wording. In introducing this, are we introducing it as written then? Okay, so this may end up being an amendment, but in the first ordinance change, Chapter 110 on the business regulation one, Section D10, there is a wording where it changes when the written findings are available. And I wondered, the practical part of this, I'm trying to get the right section here. Looking at it. Excuse me while I find the right section. There it is. The previous wording says, at the conclusion of the hearing, these are hearings where people are defending their license, the written findings of fact would have been made at the end of the hearing. And the change makes it, the hearing officer shall make written findings of fact based on the evidence. It is not clear to me when that written finding of facts is then available, and it appears in the next subparagraph, the hearing officer shall make a finding whether or not the license shall be. The action still takes place at the hearing, but the written facts are not set down at the hearing. They may be available at some later date. So I'd like either clarification on that to know whether it needs amendment or not.
With regard to subsection D11 there, that doesn't occur at the hearing. It just states that the hearing officer shall make a finding. That finding is made during part of his written findings of fact. We're removing at the conclusion of the hearing because that makes it sound like that same day the hearing officer is going to put together a written findings of fact. And what actually occurs is that the hearing officer waits until the transcript of the proceeding is produced by the court reporter, reviews that along with any exhibits and other evidence that comes into play, and that's when they put together their written findings of fact.
So
There's no, when a transcript might get produced, that timeline can vary, so that's why there's not a set timeline, but we didn't want anybody appealing a matter at these hearings to think that at the conclusion of that hearing, they're immediately going to get their results.
Well, I understand why they might think that. You have other types of administrative hearings where at the conclusion of the hearing, the findings are available and the decision happens at the end of that hearing. So this one is, this particular ordinance about license revocation is sort of a higher level of hearing than it. It's not quite the same as a court hearing, but it is not purely just an administrative hearing. The findings do not occur the same day as the hearing. Okay. That would not seem to be a problem then, the wording change there. And we're just on that first ordinance, or are we on to the second one? Okay. I have no amendment to offer then. That explanation seems to cover it.
Now, it's Councilman Milne. Is there a motion that you would make? Okay. All right. Any further discussion on this one? Yes, Councilman Moore.
I just need to say, moving forward. We're doing this moving forward.
It is
without any
perspective.
changes.
It is perspective.
Perspective, moving forward.
Any other questions or discussion? Any other questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Madam Clerk?
Our second ordinance is to amend Chapter 96 of Title 9, General Regulations, by amending Section 96.32 titled Curb Restoration.
I should announce that the last ordinance is laid over under the charter provision. So, having said that, we'll move on. Is there a motion regarding the second ordinance to amend Chapter 96, Title 9? It has been moved to be introduced. Is there a second? It's been seconded. Is there any discussion on this proposed ordinance? Councilman?
Yes. Again, a question about the ordinance under curb restoration. It talks about abandoned curb cuts, and it goes on further for how they can be replaced by the city and then the owner charged. I'm not real familiar with this ordinance. We have in place part of this ordinance already. We have some minor changes here. I'm interested because there was recent discussion from the land bank that they were going to do some removal where homes had been torn down. Are we enforcing this ordinance as written right now, or?
And I believe they do remove the curb cuts.
I know they do currently.
Currently?
There was, I guess I don't know the history of this ordinance. There are abandoned curb cuts we haven't done. Are they prior to the ordinance? I don't know the actual introduction date of the ordinance here. This is an amendment to it, just some minor changes, but.
Mr. Manager,
Do we have any history on this? No.
More recent through the federal regulations. Mr. Stemple, if you could help us.
Good evening. Historically, probably prior to 2006, when we did demolitions, we did not restore the curbs. We left the approach in place. As we began getting grant funding for those demolitions, we implemented, mostly because it leaves an unsightly lot. It appears as though there's a driveway leading to nowhere. The main purpose of restoring the curb is if the approach was taken out, leaving soils along the edge of the road, those soils would erode into the road. So the approaches into the driveways that were left prior to that, the concrete remained and the erosion issue didn't occur.
So do you know if this ordinance came after 2006 or 7 then?
I don't believe so. I don't have the date of the ordinance.
I guess perhaps I'm just confused then at how it was applied during some previous periods. I know it's pretty vigorous now.
Sure.
So, no, I guess that's the only part I was wondering if it was any part of this new, but apparently not. Just the minor changes in your designee in this ordinance. Okay. Thank you for your indulgence, and there's
Further questions or discussion? Any further question or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried, and will be laid over, it will be laid over under the charter provision.
Our third and final ordinance introduced tonight is to amend Chapter 14 titled Finance and Purchasing of Title I Administrative Code.
I need a motion to introduce. It's been moved and supported. Is there any discussion on this introduction? Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Again, carried, and this will be laid over under the charter provision as well.
We are now at consideration and passing of ordinances. Our first one is to amend Section 5215 water meters and Section 52.57A water billing of Chapter 52 Water of Title V Public Works.
Is there a motion to adopt? Is there a second? Any discussion on the passing of this ordinance? Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Next, Madam Clerk.
Our final one this evening is to amend Chapter 71 of Title VII Traffic Regulations by adding a new section titled Cost Recovery.
Is there a motion to adopt? It's been moved. Is there support? There's been support. Is there any discussion on this ordinance? Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried, and, carried. Madam Clerk, next item.
Thank you. Our next order of business is resolutions. We have one this evening. It's approving the amendment to the Brownfield Plan for the Michigan Works redevelopment project.
Is there a motion to adopt? Is there support? It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Madam Clerk?
We are now at motions and miscellaneous business.
Is there any, are there any motions and miscellaneous business to bring to the table? Anything? Is there a motion to adjourn? Been moved and supported. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. We are.